Righto, that works. Lovely. Okay, so the other awesome thing is that this screen will close down.
Good. So you can't see yourself.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We're finally doing this.
I think you should do some.
Do we care about brand?
Oh,
placement?
we're just getting started.
Right.
Yeah. What are you starting with there, Samuel?
So this will be a Liberty Brewing Co. It is a 7-bomb hopatomic Indian Pale Ale from Nelson.
Nelson.
From Nelson, all the way from Nelson.
I'm just going to start off the podcast with the Tuatara Prime Evil. Word of the wise, if you're looking at the Tuatara Pick 6, it's actually 6 beers of new flavours, and the one I picked up is this Old World IPA. Tuatara, of course, are from Wellington, I think.
So 7 bombs meant to sound like 7 yon, isn't it?
I'd say so. What are some of your ingredients? This is pretty run of the mill.
Ingredients:
water, malted barley, hops, and yeast. That's how you make beer. 3
ingredients. You can actually pick a kit up for about $80 from a brewing shop.
Oh, here we are, Paraparan. Up the Kapiti Coast.
Oh, should we crack her oven?
We've got the batch edition bottle opener, 2-in-1. The can opener, bottle opener. Oh! Try to get it in the right spot, eh?
Oh,
there it
listen
is.
to that.
Here it is.
There we go. There she goes. There she blows. Here we go.
And
So it's an art, isn't it?
so put it to get into a glass. It's probably what you call an average pour, but it's okay because this will turn into beer.
I mean, it's all about that head, really, isn't it?
Sometimes.
Depends what kind of mood you're in, I suppose.
Right, so we've done 16 episodes of the Stag Raw so far, and finally I've brought in a professional. We're sitting here with probably the best wallpaper in the country. 50-year-old, absolutely. Cheers. We're out in Whangapoua. So Sam, what have you been making the most of this week whilst in this idyllic location?
I've got to say, the first thing this year, La Nina, beautiful sun. Really quite beautiful temperatures, 25 plus. Midday sun's a little bit hot.
That wind's been chilly.
The wind has been chilly, but it's few and far between.
It's coming right too, isn't it?
It is.
What are your impressions?
It's very hoppy. Very hoppy. And I'm just actually trying to read what I should be tasting, and that way I know what I should be tasting. My palate isn't quite as refined as perhaps yours is. You're one of those people that can taste wine and taste something more than grapes.
No.
I am slowly edging my way towards that, but at the moment I taste beer.
No, it's probably the same as this, just take a tasting hops.
Running through that savage hot bomb all the way through the long stormy night until it hits your tongue, where you can expect the flavour to explode onto your palate. It's a flavour explosion, and it's a 7%er, so this is going to go well.
From that though, you could probably say it's up to your own interpretation.
It is.
Hops are the key. Yours is a lot lighter than this primeval hop. It's the malted barley, I think.
It's quite cloudy, isn't it? It's kind of like a homebrew job. There's no sediment, as far as I can see. But yeah, quite cloudy, almost wheat beerish.
You could almost say that was a GMA, which we nearly did buy down at the Whangapoua Dairy.
GMA?
Gold medal ale.
Gold medal ale.
Pride of the South, Spate's finest.
See, I feel like you've got a ticket to drink Spates because you're from South.
For sure.
But it's like Waikato draft. Unless you're from the area, I would tend to avoid it.
It's tough playing rugby there, I tell you that.
Well, it's pretty much road tar, that stuff, is it not? They're built like infrastructure.
Yeah,
the blokes down there.
It's very agricultural. Yeah. It's a very agricultural service beer, that one. The Waikato draft.
running into a concrete pile. Go for the ankles, they say. It's, one thing when their ankles are about that bloody wide.
It's tough. Right, so I said we've finally got a professional one who's seen Farrell today.
Professional's a stretch. I do this though. Yeah, not this.
You actually have a cameraman.
I do have a cameraman, and I've got people talking in my ear usually on the AM show to tell me.
And a microphone.
And a microphone, yeah. And my boss just always in my ear saying, please don't ruin this. And it's not actually as long as a podcast. It's usually relatively short and concise.
9 and 10. It's 10 seconds worth of TV gold, isn't it?
Well, it is. Yeah, slightly longer. I mean, we've got our 6:35 hit. Which is the hello, we're here, we're doing this.
Do you have a lead in?
Thames? Yep. So you've got to kind of come up with something at 6:35, which is after sport, and then it's a waiting game, hoping that someone comes down to play.
Does Rigger throw to you? Now it's on Sam Farrell.
No. It goes back to Duncan, and then Duncan will throw, and he has a bit of a spiel about the prize, which was a $10,000 farmers voucher at the end of last year, and then it just goes straight to us. Have a bit of a speech, and then it's not until 8:10 that we come back on.
What's key for the teaser? Is it speak about the location, reiterate the prize? What have you got to get across there?
So we don't reiterate the prize. That's Duncan's territory. We'll basically just try and give the cafe a play behind us. It's our way of kind of incentivising telecameras and stuff being outside the cafe. So it depends where we are, but sometimes we'll give them a bell beforehand, or we'll just say, hey, look, we're coming to play. Do you mind if we come and play outside your cafe? We'll give you a mention 9 out of 10 times. They're happy to do that. We've had a couple who are a little bit iffy about it, but no one's ever said no, and so we turn up, give them a bell, and we're away laughing usually, and we'll pick a relatively popular cafe so that people know where we are and can head on down. The one thing that we've learned, you can't do public transport areas because no one around public transport facilities wants to stop. They're trying to go straight to their bus or train or whatever. So it's usually either a bakery or a cafe that we'll be at. So, I mean, that kind of whittles it down for anyone wanting to play 9 and 10 in the future.
Can't know either Sam or Duncan Garno or anybody, eh?
No, can't.
So if you know anybody at
it's TV3, public.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it, just leave it to the unknowns.
And so, being part of the AM show, tell us all about the sacrifices that are involved with bringing television in the morning.
Well, it's an early start for one.
How early?
Well, it depends what I'm doing. So if I'm a segment producer, I'll be up at 2:15 in the morning. It's a 3 to 3:30 start in the morning. So we'll be in there and we'll be getting the show teed up for the day. As a segment producer, you write bits and pieces for the show. So I'll be... one of my things is other things, so the 5 things you don't need to know today. So they're usually funny things like whether or not there's been a robbery. There was one that we did, a robbery in somewhere in the States, and bloke was dressed as Santa, caught on CCTV, things like that. They're usually funnier than that, actually.
It's a good tactic, though.
Yeah, so that's it. That is a tactic. We'll look around the Daily Mail, we'll look at the Daily Mirror.
You might actually find some news in there, though.
It is. It's always newsy. There's a news hook to it, but it's funny news, or news that can be taken less seriously. So no death, no gruesome sort of acts of, paedophilia or anything like that. We tend to not make jokes about horrible stuff like that. But if no one's died and someone's just been a bit stupid, that'll make you into the other things you don't need to know. And so it's about 2 minutes worth of writing that. It takes about an hour though, so like a small segment actually does take a while to produce, and we have to get all the graphics as well. Just little intricate things to sit behind Duncan.
And you said you're next door to the law department, so you can get there through
We
quickly.
yes, to pass that to poor old Tom, our head of the law department, who deals quite closely with our show from time to time. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. He's used to it now. It's breakfast TV. It's fine. But yeah, that's that part. If I'm reporting, I'll be there at 4. If I'm playing 9 and 10, still there at 4. We'll leave sort of around about 5:30 for our first cross at 6. Really easy. All we need is a cameraman.
And you beat the traffic.
Beat the traffic. Get out to the spot. We use a thing called Live View, which is basically just a series of it's a box, probably what's that? It's maybe 30 centimeters high, and sort of basically the size of a packet of biscuits, large packet of biscuits, and that goes and hooks onto the side of the camera, and it's just a series of SIM cards that have kind of been shimmied together, and that has taken place of what used to be the SNG truck. So if you ever went to a live event, they'd have trucks pull up, and there would be cables rolled in. Sky Sports sometimes still uses them for big games because you just can't trust the Live View because it just runs off batteries, but they'd run big cables into the event, and we used to do that for 9 and 10 even 5 years ago, or for any live cross they would use them. And so yeah, it's taken a whole heap of stress out of live crosses and a whole heap of cables out, and all you need to do is flick it on basically, and it shoots up to the satellite and back to the studio
And onto our TV screens.
and onto our telly screens.
So,
I'm sure there's more to it than that actually, but that's my simple.
Someone's there pressing a button.
Yeah, pretty much it. Yeah.
So what's the bonus of starting so early? What do you do when you finish, and when do you finish?
You knock off at 12. Or thereabouts. It's when you finish your work, basically. So after the show, we'll have our meeting, which usually happens at about 9:15. Enough time for you to go get a scone and a coffee beforehand.
What's the scone?
What sort of scone? Across the road, Sandwich Club does these amazing things. They're not really scone, they're kind of a scone. They're a spinach and cheese and bacon scone, and I get them on occasion when I feel like treating myself.
Where's Sandwich Club? Give them a shout out.
Eden Terrace.
Yep.
They are directly across the road from 3 Flower Street, pretty much, in a little block of shops. Next to I'm Not a Barber. I'm not entirely sure of their exact location, but
It's just there.
it's there. Yeah.
Google it. Find it.
Sandwich Club, Eden Terrace. You'll love it. Lovely people too, actually. But
How's the coffee?
yeah, good. All press coffee. Polarizing, actually.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people, because we were quite lucky, we've got Supreme up the road as well. But I'm more of a fan of, I'm an all press fan.
You and Dan Carter.
Is he an all press fan?
Yeah, he gets it. Well, there's actually now all press in the UK, so gets it sent there, but he used to get it shipped over from New Zealand. Also, James Haskell, he's a big all press fan.
Right.
In the UK, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, fun facts. Yeah. So you're all done. What do you get up to? Sleep? Train?
I'll sleep. And sometimes, from Wednesday onwards, probably have a snooze. Get home, have lunch first. The beauty of working mornings is that you can come home and have lunch, so you don't need to worry about packing, soggy sandwiches or anything like that. It's sort of like you can actually think about having eggs on toast or whatever when you get home, and then sitting down and watching a bit of telly usually, and then we'll fall asleep to that. Wake up maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours later. By the time my partner Liv comes home, then she and I will either go for a run, or she'll go to the gym and I'll go for a run, or we both might go to the gym if she's really lucky, because I'm not a massive fan of the gym. And then it's dinner time and in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock. 5.5 hours sleep, back into it the next day.
It's intense. hear you have been dabbling in a bit of spin class though, Sam.
I do like a spin class.
Does it take you back to your cycling days?
It does. It's harder. It's harder. The beauty of cycling is that you can see the top of the hill.
Yeah.
And you don't have some really fit-looking bloke sitting at the front of the class going, okay, up, you can do it, you know.
Change another cog.
And he's fantastic, old Otto, but at the same time...
Is that Otto or Otto?
Otto, O-T-T-O, from some exotic location. He's great at what he does, but also it just feels quite relentless, and it doesn't feel like a road bike on the road, you know. You don't have a tailwind. It's just always a headwind, especially up the hills. Have you ever done the trip?
No. Is this a spin class where you've got something?
Yeah.
A visual.
Yeah, it's Les Mills. They do the trip, which is basically like a theme park ride. You know, like the Motion Masters that you would love to go on as a kid. Except instead of the motion making you feel woozy. The exercise does, yeah. And so you're very tightly crammed into what is, especially throughout the summer, quite a small and hot room, despite the fact that they've got aircon on. And you endure what is 45 minutes of hell on earth.
Towels are compulsory, I take it.
Towels are compulsory. Especially when you're a sweaty beast like myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, 45 minutes of up and down the hills and HIIT training. Is it HIIT training? Yeah.
High intensity interval training.
That's it. So HIIT training. And you leave feeling fairly shattered.
Euphoric, though.
Euphoric. That's the thing, and I've actually been reading Dom Harvey's book, and Running, a Love Story. And one thing that I do believe to be true is that whether you're running or you're doing exercise, whilst it takes a bit of effort to get yourself out there sometimes, I have never ever once regretted going for a run or doing exercise. You feel like shit while you're doing it, you feel like death, but then afterwards, you feel alright. And then when you have if you decide to have a beer that night or whatever, you don't feel quite as bad about it.
A few cheeses and chips.
Yeah.
Choice goes down well while you're at the beach.
It does, yeah, it does. Well, the beach is an exception, isn't it? I feel like this time of year, everyone kind of strays from their routine. Yeah. There's a lot more drinking, there's a lot more eating. You yourself, I haven't seen you exercise once.
Hey, I've been handstanding and surfing.
Yeah, surfing. Yeah, no, you're right.
Well,
but
when we say surfing, I mean trying to catch waves.
But you're the exercise fiend, usually. I see your Instagram videos.
Try to.
You doing squats and
jumping
stuff.
Yeah, no, it's good. I was nearly inspired this morning.
No. By my hobbling up the road and back?
A bit of that. The thought of running along the beach crossed my mind, and Liv doing some Kayla scenes workout. I was like, oh yeah.
Just walk me through it. What is that?
She was doing some sort of, I don't know, single leg squats and step up running and press ups and things. But no, it didn't last long.
No?
No, for me.
For you?
Yeah.
My run didn't last long either. It was really warm by the time we got out there. 10 o'clock is not an ideal time to be running in the middle of summer.
No.
Bloody warm.
I did ask you, did you get so hot you felt cold? Because that was me when I ran the 12k the other week, and that was earlier than. Oh no, I think we kicked off about 9 o'clock. So yeah, I was probably running through the 10 o'clock time, and yeah, I was so hot I was cold. It's not a good place to be.
That's probably something you want to get checked out.
No, I think it's called heat stroke.
Oh, is it? Oh, heat stroke. Right. Okay. It's probably not something you want.
Yeah.
Coming in there, your own.
Yeah. Hey. Three water stations on that day was not quite enough, to be fair.
How'd you do?
54 minutes. So
that's all right.
It was all right.
What sort of pace is that?
I think it was like 4:38. This is just off the top of my head, so don't have any calculators handy. So can't.
Yeah, that's a good pace. That's a good click.
I think a lot of that time came from the first 6Ks though. The second 6Ks, they were painful.
How do you find running?
I'm a heavy-footed person, so
Oh,
I'm not the biggest fan. And when I did try a train for the Queenstown half, and this was before my hip surgery, my ITB got incredibly tight to the point where it felt like it was going to rip my kneecap off.
right.
And the physio said to me, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to play rugby or be a runner? And so that came to the decision not to do the half marathon. But post-hip surgery, running was better, but then had a recurring calf problem. So it's I don't like being injured.
No.
No.
It's a cacophony of errors.
Yeah.
No, injury is no fun, is it?
No. So I jumped back in the swimming pool instead, and then I remembered why I quit swimming.
Why you quit swimming? You can't breathe underwater. That's what, when you're doing strenuous exercise, the one thing I've noticed is that you want air a lot more. Like running this morning, I wanted air a lot.
And it's hot.
And it is hot. And so you're sucking in air like there's not enough of it. And so I can imagine being puffed in a pool, because I'm not a swimmer. I can swim. That's a great one. You can't breathe when you're underwater. So you suck in and you die.
Yeah, no, it's I'm definitely a lot better at my breathing now. I used to be a one-side wonder, and it probably contributed to why I had hip surgery and overdevelopment on one side. But now I'm much better at the bilateral breathing, or bilateral double breathing. Actually, it's a 2 on one side, and then you do 3 strokes and 2 on the other side. But yeah, it's all semantics though. Yeah.
One thing I have noticed is, especially on your podcast here, is that you've had lots of talented athletes on. Have you picked up any techniques from them that you've been able to implement within your own fitness regime?
Well, the heart rate thing from Tony Dodds was something I was exploring already, and then it was actually quite interesting because he was speaking about using heart rate training for one, efficiency of training, but also energy system, and then we had Big Tim Doyle, who did the Iron Man, which was crazy, and again that was something he spoke about, that he was trying to hit some heart rate markers to stay in that fat burning mode, try not to get too glycolytic and get too much build-up of lactic acid. And then funnily enough, when I saw the integrative practitioner and he sort of said, well, your adrenal glands are a bit boosted, so therefore you'll be under or respond to stress quite adversely, and so your sort of threshold for keeping in the fat burning zone comes down. And whilst I was training for the 12K, it was something I noticed. I'd get to about sort of 35 to 40 minutes and my recovery wasn't there, and my heart rate just would all of a sudden start to climb up and be sort of go from being under 150 to all of a sudden pushing 165, 170, and it could never get back down, and my breath would be short and be short of breath and things like that.
Right.
That's probably in the zone you were at this morning, was it, Sam? Trying to get breath again?
Oh no, I'm just always puffed when I'm running. I'd like to think I'm getting better at running, but then you see other people and they make it look really easy, and I imagine you're probably one of those people. And
no,
but I don't know. I feel like we should go for a run together because it'll be interesting. I started this morning I wanted to do a 12K today, and I started this morning at a 4 minutes 56 pace for the first 5K, and it came to sort of that 5K mark, and you've got your Nike Run app in your ear, and it tells you that you've done 5K, and I was just cooked at that point. I think I ended up doing about 7K today because it was just so hot, but I think that's my issue, is that I go out too hard. Yeah. Had I had gone out at like a 5 minute 30 pace, I don't know, I might have been able to run. But for me, it's all about and maybe this is what cycling had me learn, it's like when you get out there, you push your heart rate up and you sit in an intense, sort of, you put yourself in the box and you stay there for as long as you can. Maybe that's why I was a shit cyclist, actually. Maybe there was something wrong back then as well. I just feel like if you're not going hard, then you're going home. And maybe I go too hard.
How did you feel about being in a peloton? Did it frustrate you? Or?
See, I like to think I was a much better cyclist than what I was. Because, schoolboy racing was probably the fittest I've ever been. Being in a peloton scared the shit out of me, because it was that unknown feeling of whether or not you were going to be one of the sorry bastards who went down and, ruined their collarbone. Collarbones are just like the first thing to go in cycling.
After skin, yeah. Because you're not only landing on the road, but half the time you're going down and you're taking down people around you, and so you may fall onto somebody else's bike and go, bam, straight into the rear derailleur. Especially if you're going in this position here.
Boom, straight down. And you tense up, of course, as well, because you know it's about to happen. If the crash happens in front of you, you can see it happening. And if you're lucky, sometimes you can jump onto the curb or whatever and get out of it, but then sometimes there's just no way of getting out of it, and so you just go straight into it. And yeah, so that scared me, but it's something that you, as soon as the whistle goes, or the gun goes and you're off, you kind of put that aside, and it's fun. If you can get yourself into the middle of the bunch or the front of the bunch, you lose some of that rubber band effect, because there's always going to be surging. The guys at the front are jostling for positions, and after that pace car leaves, it just goes like the clappers, and you'll be doing over 50k an hour for a while. And then all of a sudden it settles down, but it's basically just to thin out the peloton. And so if you're up the front, then you're not going to be the last to, see that kick coming. And so, when these guys surge and you're at the back, of course you drop off and you have to fight your way around the guys who can't hold on to the pace. But if you're at the front with them, you can accelerate with them, and then the guys behind can kind of sort themselves out.
Yeah.
And when it whittles down, you're one of the ones still there. And that was something that I tuned onto really late in the piece. I think my final year, probably when I was fittest. And I realised that, if you're up the front, you could actually hold on, and no one can do over 50k an hour for 100k, and so eventually it does slow down and you can get your breath, but if you're fit enough to keep with them for that first part, you're good. There'll be cyclists out there going, he's wrong,
yeah,
amateur.
They can write in. Were you on fixies or were you on a
robot?
Yeah,
I gave track a hoon. But I gave it a nudge too early in the piece, I think, and I've always been a bit of a tentative soul, and so the no brakes fixed wheel thing was just perhaps a little bit too much for me, and so I was a roadie and I loved it. I got quite good at the team pursuit thing on the road, but yeah, I suppose I wish I'd given the track more of a crack. It was fun. It was faster.
Is that on the Manukau?
Yeah,
Manukau
which is concrete.
Bowl?
Have you been there?
No, but I've seen it on the telly, and definitely my cycling expedition from about 9 to 12 was at Kew Bowl, and that was concrete. It was lots of fun.
Did you cycle?
Oh, briefly. I won a race.
Did you?
Actually, I won one too. I remember. Yeah, I've got some cash money.
Tell you what, there's that great Avanti drum in Cambridge, and I'm not sure if they let any punter onto it, but if they did like a social series.
I'm pretty sure you've got to get a certificate to say that you're good to go. So.
Oh really?
Maybe I could call on some favours with Eddie Dawkins.
Eddie, you know what to do.
Yeah. And, Sam Webster, another Aucklander. Manukau Bowl.
Do you know him?
No, he does though.
Right, well, it's not like it's who you know, isn't it? It's another thing about telly.
Yeah.
It's not like it's who you know.
Yeah, so let's tell us about that. Who were you tuning the teleprompter for, Sam?
So I started back in 3 News, back in 2012, 2013, when I was a uni student. I was studying a Bachelor of Communication Studies.
To borrow from the opposition, I'll just interrupt you there.
Yeah.
And we'll grab another beer.
Yeah. Do we need music?
No.
Interlude.
Yes,
we got? Oh, Stella.
Yeah.
I want to see a better pour from you this time, actually.
Yeah. That first one was a loosener.
Yeah. It was.
To borrow
That's a really polite way of putting it, isn't it? There we go. I don't understand why Stella has to have paper all the way up to the top, actually. It goes beyond me, because quite often if you're drinking out of the bottle...
Which you shouldn't.
Oh, there's a time and place for everything.
You know how you burp a lot when you drink out of the bottle? It's because you don't get this release of flavour and carbon dioxide, and so
this time you've done better than that.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yeah, so that's why it's important to pour it into a glass. It means to get less bloating as well.
Oh. And also, you can get your nose in there.
Yeah.
I don't
Very
know what
important.
else.
Maybe not so much on a Stella, but definitely on the 7 bomb.
A bloody good beer, though, actually. Just easy drinking, isn't it? Right. So, what was your question before? 2013.
It's important who you know, and that segued us into turning the teleprompter.
Teleprompter, yeah. So, I got into broadcasting because I was a real keen little bugger. And I was at university, and there's nothing scarier than sitting in a lecture hall with like 350 other kids who all want to be journalists as well. Plus, you've got CPIT down in Christchurch, with another however many they have every year. So you know that it's a hard industry to get into, and you're sitting there and you want it, and you go, what separates me from these guys? And so I ended up tweeting Sasha McNeil, because I got Twitter. They told us to at university, so I set it all up, and I tweeted Sasha McNeil, who had actually followed me on Twitter. And so this is back in the 3 News days, and so she followed me, and I tweeted her and said, hey, look, I'm a journalism student, I want to get into broadcasting, how do I do it? And she said, well, why don't you come along and watch Nightline, which was the evening show at that time, go to air. And so I said, sweet as, when do you want me in? And so went in, and she took me around the old TV3 newsroom, which was really nothing much at all. And she walked me around and said, this is the Nightline team, and took me down into the control room, and then took me into the studio, and I watched the news go to air. And then I kept in contact with her, and so I'd send her kind of emails and say, hey, look, I got this in my current test. And she eventually said, hey, look, I think the best thing for you to do next is to auto-cue. So auto-cueing is running the teleprompter, so what Mike and Hillary read and what have you. So I think I must have been 19 or 20 at the time, and I sent my CV in and got a job interview, and of course it helped that Sasha had said, he's keen. And anyway, I was in there and started auto-cueing, and I auto-cued for like a year and a half. And so I did shows like 6 o'clock news, Campbell Live, Nightline. I did First Line, which was the morning breakfast show. And I did Paul Henry when he first came back to New Zealand after a stint in Australia. He had a late night show. So I auto-cued that. And then it was through that I got my first job in journalism.
And where did you come from to get into journalism? As a job?
As a job. So I was studying communications. And actually I missed out on on journalism in the subject, the major, in year 3 because I had a shitter of an exam and I got a C, and it wasn't enough to make the cut.
Yeah.
And so I ended up doing radio, and part of me regrets it now, but I didn't put enough effort into radio because I was really resentful that I hadn't got into journalism. And
what did you do whilst you were in radio? You ran a
basically
radio
we just did
station?
entertainment radio. So we ran a radio station called Stag 88.1 FM, which was just a local frequency. And so we had all the bells and whistles. We had a real nice studio, and it's set up at the university, and we did our own radio shows, and we sold advertising for the station, and we kind of created a brand image for it. But it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something serious, and I got a little bit caught up in that and a little bit resentful, I suppose. And thankfully, I was still working at TV3 at the time, and John Campbell, who was just such a good bugger, and still is a good bugger, was the only reason that I was able to get a job in journalism, because one day, coming towards the end of my degree, I was auto-cueing his show, and I was training a new auto-cuer that we had in, and he came through and he said, have you got a job for after you finish university? And I said, no, I haven't. And he goes, great, well, would you like one?
Sure didn't say marvellous.
Marvellous, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, bloody brilliant. Oh, something about JC that a lot of people won't know is that he swears like a sailor. And so the guy will just rip out the most heinous language that you've ever heard in your entire life. And just you learn to love it because it's just him. But then as soon as he's on air, he's just this figure of authority. And it's still like that. It's why it's even funnier that he's at RNZ now, the most prim and proper broadcaster in New Zealand. And here's this guy who's probably off here going, oh, the fucking cunt, you know, like. And anyway, I was really lucky that I had a really good rapport with him. Him and Alice Wilkins, actually, who was also an auto-cure at the same time, and she's now a reporter for the AM show down in Christchurch.
Yes.
And she's a Gore girl.
Yeah, from South
Down your way. And so we both went for meetings with John, and he sort of said, hey, look, do you want
I won't say who, but she did actually used to go out with one of our previous interviewees on the Stag Raw. So.
Oh, really? Have we?
We won't say who. But
No, come on.
we'll talk about this off.
I know Alice really well.
We'll talk about this off here.
Alice, you'll tell me about this.
Yeah, just flick through the category of Stag Raws and you'll find it.
Oh, good bugger. Anyway, what happened? Oh, yeah, and so we would go for meetings with him, and he's sort of like, well, do you want to do a postgrad in journalism? And I came to the conclusion that I didn't. I just wanted to try my luck. And so he took me that one fateful day up to the newsroom and introduced me directly to the head of broadcast news, Richard Sutherland. And the guy said, well, bring me your CV in tomorrow. And I brought my CV in the next day. And within a day after I graduated, I started in my online team for 3news.co.nz. Having never studied journalism, having come from radio, just thrown in the deep end, and that's kind of where I learned it all. I learned it on the job, and went from online, a year and a half in online, to a year in radio, to the AM show now. So radio live, working for their news team, which is a fantastic job, and then to the AM show.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So one of our main questions, Samuel, is what's a characteristic of Sam at 5 years old, which shows up today? You touched on a few characteristics over the years, but what shows up today, and what did you have back as a 5-year-old? What were you like?
As a 5-year-old, I was really shy. I was the kid who went to school and would cry when Mum left, and Mum had to get to school every day at like 2 o'clock. Luckily, she could with her hours and wait out there until 3 o'clock, so I knew that she was going to be there at 3 o'clock, which is quite pathetic. But also, I think some of that timidness has led me to where I am now. I think. And it's I don't know. I'd like to think I've grown as a person. But also, a degree of timidness isn't a bad thing, you know? It's okay to be sort of aware of your surroundings and aware of, you know, what is happening around you, and so long as it doesn't hold you back, I suppose. So whilst I'm still a little bit shy and a little bit sort of reserved in some senses now, to a degree, it's also what motivates me to put myself out there as well, knowing that that is probably a weakness of mine. Drama probably helped at not university, high school as well, to get rid of that. But you know, some social situations, like going into a party or something where I know absolutely no one, there's nothing scarier than that. I can remember my first live cross as well. Anything where I don't know the outcome, you know, I'm the type of guy who would never go skydiving. I wouldn't have gone skydiving when I was 5. Probably frowned upon anyway. But you know, like that's something that's probably stuck with me throughout my life. I don't know if that answers the question.
No,
it's probably a politician's answer.
No, it's good. I was just going to say, in hindsight, so you had the reindeer suit.
Yeah.
Was that helpful, or did that bring about some anxiety?
I think the reindeer suit is something that was my idea.
Yeah.
It was something that sounded really funny like 6 weeks out, and then as you drew closer and I bought the suit, it kind of sunk in that I was going to be on live telly in this Christmas, you know, bugger off suit, like it's real loud. And so it was at that point that I kind of realised and did get a little bit nervous about it. But I think broadcasting, if anything, has taught me to just not care, you know? Like, you can't go into a live cross and be tense because it's never going to end well. So you've just kind of got to rock it. And that's the beauty of breakfast telly as well, is that you can kind of be a bit of an idiot. It's that, you know, we're lucky compared to news. We have to be very prim and proper. We can have a little bit of personality flow into our role. And so, especially when you're not doing like a newsy thing, if you're not doing live crosses about some horrible fire that's eaten through a house and, you know, Mangere, you know, like you're out there playing 9 and 10, it's all about having fun. It was at Christmas time, you know, and so wearing this giant blue Christmas suit was kind of part of it. And I suppose, yeah, I was nervous, but I think it worked.
Yeah, no,
boss was happy, so I'm happy if the boss is happy.
You definitely upped the social media interaction of the AM show.
Yeah, and there's Maddie McLean on our opposition who had you know those suits where you've got Rudolph and Rudolph's head out here and Rudolph's derriere out here, and he was standing there quite happily with this, you know, jumper on with Rudolph coming out of him. And then two legs coming out the side. It was like he was riding Rudolph, basically. And he was on the opposition doing that. And our head of broadcast came up to me afterwards. She goes, "I'm not really sure about the suit, Sam, but I looked at the telly this morning, and then I looked at breakfast, and I thought, who's the adult here?"
Take that, Maddie McLean.
Take that, Maddie McLean at breakfast. So, you know, it went right up. Oh, I'm happy with that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Media has been having some bad media lately. What's the sort of team atmosphere of the AM show? You've got a someone who in the Black Caps might have been, you know, described as a lack of team man, but you say Rig is a real good sort in the team. What's the team atmosphere of the AM show like?
Team atmosphere of the AM show is the reason that I don't care that I'm getting up at 2:15 in the morning. We go to work with a bunch of genuinely good people who genuinely want to put out a good product. And so, you know, you can whinge and moan about getting up at, you know, before Jesus was born every morning. But the point of it is that you got to work with some of your best mates. And, you know, Mark is a good bugger. He's quiet, but he's a good bugger. And, you know, all of the presenters, Duncan, Amanda, really lovely people that I admire hugely and respect hugely. And because there's only like 10 of us, it's quite a close dynamic as well. And this, is different to, of course, 6 o'clock news and when you've got a lot more hands-on the product. There's only like, a handful of us trying to create this beast of a show, this 3-hour show every day, 5 days a week. And so you quickly learn what everyone likes and what they don't like. And as a producer, when you're writing something for Duncan or writing for any of them, you know what they want.
Yeah.
And you all start to think the same way, and it's that whole group think thing, if everyone's on the same page and everyone wants to create a good product, and everyone wants to beat breakfast as well.
Yeah.
And so that's our main goal. It's just to hand it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, the team is awesome. And MediaWorks has gone through some dodgy times in the past, and we don't really touch on those because they're in the past. But the thing is, the reason why anyone ever wants to work at MediaWorks is because it's always been a real family vibe. It's always been a place of good people. And within our show, and I can only speak for our show, that is definitely the case, because it is a show of good people who actually care and want to inform and be the best at what we do. And our whole motto is, because we're media, you're never going to get everybody on side. There's always going to be people who hate what you're doing, and there's going to be people who absolutely love what you're doing. And so the thing is, if you're getting it from both sides, if you're getting it from the left of the political spectrum and the right of the political spectrum, and whatever else, then you're probably finding yourself somewhere in the middle, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we've found this year, is that we've done interviews that have evoked both sides of the spectrum and all sorts of different people, and that's where you kind of want to be, I think. Yeah.
Does it sort of touch on, if you try and please everybody, you'll get nowhere?
Yeah, I think so. We have to focus on our demographic, and that's 25 to 54-year-olds. And so there's always going to be stuff that maybe doesn't sit so well with them. There's going to be stuff that hits bang smack in the middle of our demo. And also, we've got all sorts of different people listening to us. And so something that we may think is interesting might not be interesting to a good portion of our audience. And that's just a risk that you have to take. But if you don't take risks, then you're going to get nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
The whole mentality is that there's no stupid questions, because chances are someone out there is going to be wanting to know the answer to that question, and there's no stupid idea for a topic. And our executive producer, Ruben, is really good with that, because he is the type of bloke who is like, hey, hit me with your topics. He'll never, shoot them down. He'll be like, right, okay, I kind of see where you're coming from. Let's talk about it. Let's craft that. And so, some of the stuff that we put to air is stuff that genuine, personal curiosities. Like one interview that we did was the psychological aspect of fads. So like, this fidget spinner, which came out, for example, I had one of those. I had a couple of those. Still a little fascinated by them. Or Pokemon cards, or any of the things that we grew up with, Beyblades, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, these big toys or these big things that come straight into the market from nowhere and then disappear just as quickly. We spoke to a marketing expert as to, why that happens, the psychological breakdown of why that sort of stuff happens. And so that was something that I found interesting, and there was no guarantee that other people were going to find it interesting, but there is also that risk that some people might care.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to learn as well, like learning about, these marketing tactics of, God, what is it? Again, the whole group think thing, you see someone who's playing with that sort of toy, and so others, someone that you admire maybe is playing with that sort of toy, and then others, see that person playing, and so they start buy a fidget spinner as well, and it works its way out.
Yeah.
But eventually, all good things must come to an end. think we've deviated away from the topic here, but
That's about
right.
being in a team. Further to that, you're in a creative industry, and you say you've got a boss that's very open to your ideas. Does that sort of give you confidence and take away that anxiety to fail and give things a go, or is it are you because things are day to day?
Yeah.
Is there a bit of pressure on to produce something that's good and hits the rating mark?
I think ratings are always something that you're going for. It's less what we care about, more what the marketing department and integration and stuff cares about. Like, you know, we've got parts of our show that sometimes advertisers will pay. Like, for example, the Water Safety NZ has a topic, and it's alright, it's just a pot, it's fine.
Last night,
I think ratings are always at the back of your mind. Like, you would never pitch a topic of, you know, something that was too niche, for example. You know, if something's really mathematical or sciencey, the general populace isn't going to care. And quite frankly, none of us are intelligent enough to care anyway. And so, you know, for things like that, you sort of shy away from them. But on the whole, it's, yeah, I think that anxiety of failing is somewhat pushed to the side, because we do feel like we've got a bit of creative license to make the show our own. There's different slots on the show for different types of topics. Like our 7:40 interview will always be something that is sort of, you know, open-ended. It doesn't have to be newsworthy. It just has to be something that you find interesting. But the first hour of our show, from 6 o'clock through to 7 o'clock, or through to 7:20, is quite news-focused. And then after that, it teeters off into more lifestyle-y sort of stuff. So it depends what slot you're going for. But, yeah, I mean, I've pitched ideas that have been shot down, but then I've also pitched some ideas that have, you know, got legs and kind of gone somewhere. And so you don't really worry about the things that don't take flight. You sort of just worry about the things that do, and then you try to make those things that do take flight happen the best way that they possibly can, you know. Phil Liggett during the Tour de France was something that I found really interesting. I've grown up listening to Phil Liggett and his mate, his name escapes me at the moment.
Can't help you, sorry.
The less famous one, who sits alongside Phil Liggett. You know, I followed him on Twitter and asked him if he would come on our show, and so we ended up having him talk about George Bennett, who was doing really well during the Tour de France, and before he pulled out, and yeah, that was something which actually got quite good traction. And so, and also, you know, it was something that, who knew you could get such a big, you know, big name on the show, but you've kind of deviated away from.
No, it's just
you know,
just on that. Would you say, like, getting someone like him, it's just a matter of asking?
It is. A lot of I think people get caught up in the fact that, and the media teaches you this, that there is definitely, especially in New Zealand, 2 degrees of separation. And once you're in the media, you realise that everybody is kind of connected in some way. You know, we're dealing with politicians on a day-to-day basis. We've got the Prime Minister who comes on our show once a week. And then, you know, especially from radio as well, you're finding out guys like Winston Peters and Jacinda Ardern, when she wasn't Prime Minister, and, you know, even, you know, Bill English when he was Prime Minister. It is a matter of asking, and when you've got, thankfully, when you've got a show like the AM show behind you, and you can say, hey, look, I'm a reporter and producer on an AM show, would you come on our show at 6:50 tomorrow morning, or whenever, 6:40 tomorrow morning, and talk about these topics? They're, you know, relatively inclined to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then guys overseas as well, like PR companies are brilliant in the fact that they will pitch us a lot of shit, but then they will also, which we just don't pick up. But then on occasion, they'll hit us with something that actually really tickles our fancy. And actually, it's more than just on occasion. It's quite often, in fact. And so we've had guys like Lewis Litt from Suits. What's his name? I was talking to you about him yesterday.
You showed me a tweet yesterday.
It's gone,
of him giving Duncan
and my phone's not within reach. But we've had other big names, Grant Dalton and Lucy Lawless, and we had David Williams this year from Little Britain.
Yeah.
And all of those were kind of given to us on a silver platter. And then there's been other guys that we've pitched for, like we had Brendan Hartley last year.
Yep.
And then during the America's Cup, we had like Blair Tuke whilst he was over on the other side of the world and, Bermuda. And so all it takes sometimes is just asking, and with the right amount of persistence, you can actually get a pretty good gear.
Gear style.
Yeah, and it's a pretty good feeling when you do, actually.
You said about some ideas get shut down. What's sort of the committee like for an idea to be taken off? What does it take for something to gain legs?
It's really just news value a lot of the time. So, like,
But what determines that?
What determines that? Well, the news cycle. So, if you're discussing, say you want to talk Pike River, and Pike River is Andrew Little's about to talk to the families or something like that. Well, that's an excuse to get Andrew Little on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So, and especially if he's meeting with them in the afternoon, and then you want to, our show in the morning, we have to be very aware of, what 6 o'clock might run, because a lot of news dates itself quite quickly. And so if something's got legs and has legs that might, or a different angle that might be okay for 6 o'clock the next morning, then we need to be monitoring that through the day. And by the time, it gets to even midday, we want to be bidding people, making sure that we've got those opportunities there. Sometimes you'll pitch an idea in the meeting in the morning. You'll say, I want to talk to this person.
And this is after you've finished the show?
After we've finished the show, so 9 o'clock, 9:15 when we have our meeting, and you'll say, I was thinking about doing this. And they may be really keen at that time, and then some news breaks at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so then all of a sudden something has to go from the show, and so your interview gets scrapped at 3 o'clock, or it could be something, one of your interviews gets scrapped at 9 o'clock, the night before the show. It's just how it works. And so news value is obviously done on what's most relevant at the time, what's going to be newest in the morning, and we are only there for the morning, and so it's quite often up to the setup team to decide to determine those things, to keep an eye on what's developing throughout the day, so that when 6 o'clock rolls around in the morning, you've got the newest and freshest show that you possibly can have. That's sort of the process. We look at things, even though we go to bed quite early, it's part of our job really to watch the 6 o'clock news at night. Sometimes they will regurgitate a lot of what we've had throughout the day and move, topics that we've done forward. Other times they may have an exclusive, and if they've got an exclusive, say, something to do with SIPS, the Ministry of
Youth and Family, Child, Youth and Family.
Yeah, Child, Youth and Family, which is Ministry for Vulnerable Children. Whatever, like a report comes out at 4 o'clock and they've got to track on that or something, then it would be wise to, especially in a producer capacity, to start thinking of people that you might be able to talk to, because there's a chance that you'll get to work at 3:30 in the morning and setup team may have gone home without thinking about that sort of thing. And so then it's up to you to sort of pick up the phone and, get the children's commissioner on or whatever, Yeah.
And how many of you are producing for the AM show?
So upstairs there'll be myself and Duncan. So Duncan is a chaser producer. So his role basically is to write segments for the show as well, and to make sure that, you know, little fiddly bits are all done. But his job is to also chase breaking news in the morning. So if, for example, Robert Mugabe, this was actually a real life example, Robert Mugabe resigned, or the military coup, you know, incapacitated him, locked him into his home. It was his job to start phoning people in Zimbabwe, journalists in Zimbabwe, and being like, hey, would you be available to come on the show? And it's not so much as just making sure that they're available to come on the show, it's also a matter of like asking them seeing if they're good enough talent to come on the show. And so in the end, we had a former High Court judge who had fled from Zimbabwe to New Zealand and was now residing in Wellington, that he somehow miraculously found on the internet, who had worked directly with Mugabe. And we had him come on the show and talk about Mugabe in quite a personal perspective. And that was only teed up at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and he was on air kind of 30 minutes after that happened, you know. So that's his role. And then you've got the executive producer, who is Ruben Bradley at the moment. And then you've also, so he goes down to the studio, and he's basically, his role is just to make sure that the overall product happens as it's supposed to happen. And then you've got Kate Harley as well, who is our lineup producer at the moment. And so she, I'm not entirely sure what she does, but important stuff. She writes stuff for the show as well, and makes sure that everything is just timing out and going.
So that was going to be my next question. How does it go from an idea and some content to then being put onto a teleprompter and being lined up in terms of the show? Is that Ruben's responsibility?
No, so like every day after the show, when we have our meeting, we'll discuss things, and then the show gets kind of divvied up. So there's a 6:20 interview, a 6:40 interview, a 6:50 interview, a 7:10, 7:20, 7:40, sometimes 7:50. At 8:10 we have the panel, and then a 8:40 interview and an 8:50 interview. And so all of those slots will kind of get divvied up, some of which we've got a planning producer who will kind of organise things weeks in advance, so you know those pieces. We always know who the panel's going to be, which might be, say, Rawdon Christie and somebody else, Mary Lambie. And then all the other segments, a lot of the 7:40 and some of the less newsy segments are left to us, and then the newsy segments are kind of usually done by setup, because they can be done later in the day if something breaks. And so we have these templates which we go into on Google, and they are basically where we put all our notes. And so we'll go a bit of a background into the interview, and then we'll do some sort of notes. We'll ring up the person that we're interviewing and say, hey, Brendan Hartley, or his PR person probably, you know, and say, hey, can you send us through some of the latest notes that we'll be talking about? They flick them through. We have those in sort of quite a concise form, and then a couple of suggested questions for Duncan, and basically that bit of paper then gets turned into the cards that you see Duncan holding in the morning, sort of there'll be coloured bits of card with the AM show in the background, and so that's got all the background information on there for him, and he has those in order, and he can just go through those, and he knows who he's talking to next. And so then we have to take all of what's on the notes, and we put it into our system called iNews, which is this niggly system, which is basically what ends up on the teleprompter. Yeah. And so iNews is separated into, and tell me if this is getting too technical, but basically it's separated into 3 segments. So you've got this 6, 7, and 8 o'clock hour, and just everything that goes by in the show is put into that rundown. It's called a rundown. So from every little bit that happens, including the ad-lib, is kind of usually incorporated in there. And by the time the show goes to air, I'd say 60-70% of it is already written, and so the rest of it gets written on the fly. But all our major interviews will be in there, and so we write them into iNews, and that's what comes up on the teleprompter. And then, of course, when we're setting up those notes, we're also thinking about the plasma, so what comes up behind Duncan when he's talking to whoever. We're also thinking about what's called B-roll, which is sometimes, it's boring just to see someone sitting there and talking about a subject.
Yeah.
And so you'll cut away to the, pictures of Brendan Hartley racing in some, Grand Prix or something somewhere. And so we do all that as well. And we do what's called the baseline as well, which pops up, and the baseline is Brendan Hartley, Formula One driver. And it's just, this little name badge, I suppose. And so that's kind of how it all comes together. And then our awesome director and director's assistant sit down there with the producers, and they do everything technical. Plus the studio crew, there's camera ops and a floor manager, plus the camera ops who go out live on the scene. So it's an army of thousands. But they do all the technical stuff. They switch between the vision and cut between the cameras, and somehow what we write down on paper and what we write down on those cards and in the system eventually becomes television, and it's kind of this magical thing that just happens every day. And it's kind of freaky, actually.
And going back to when you were part of the teleprompter, and you said everything's on there, including the ad-lib.
Yeah.
What's sort of going on in your headphones whilst you're turning the page?
Well, auto cue is the bottom of the pecking order as well. And so, you're the first one to cop the blame if anything up during the show.
He will literally read anything you put on there.
It's kind of it in some capacity. Guys like John Campbell, for example, on Campbell Live, and you become very accustomed to this, but he was awesome at ad-lib. And so he'd be reading something, and just because it was on the teleprompter did not mean he was going to read it. So he'd be like halfway through something, and then you'd realise that he's gone totally off script. And he'd talk for like 2 or 3 minutes off script, and you just kind of had to keep going down the teleprompter thinking he's going to come back at some point. And eventually you kind of understood.
And is that in your ear, or are you all just turning?
Well, the control room was just as confused as everybody else. They're like, come on, John. And eventually he would come back to it, and you kind of learnt where he was going to come back to it as he would start reading the teleprompter.
Is that where the starter came in?
The what?
The John starter came in when he was trying to catch in, or?
Oh no, I don't know. I think he's an exceptionally clever person as well. So he will. He's very, very good at ad-libbing. But I think there's just a million things going around in his head at one given time, and so the stutter may come from possibly the executive producer in his ear going, John, we need you back on script. We've got 30 seconds. Which he never paid attention to, but that's fine. I'm not sure. It's interesting you pick that up, actually.
Yeah. We'll grab one more beer before we sort of wrap this up.
Okay, brilliant. We've got another Stella on this. Is there another Stella in there?
Sure is, mate.
Brilliant. This is fun. We got the spiced ginger beer. That sounds exciting.
It's Alex.
Yeah,
Needs the non-alcoholics. We're having our fair share.
Well, she has an excuse, doesn't she?
Yes.
Okay. Who's been the best person that you've interviewed? Obviously, please do not feel inclined to grease in this.
Well, art was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's just been, because most people that I've interviewed have been good mates over the years, and it's just been really exciting to sort of catch up on the incredible things that I've been doing. And just get to it. The good you've got it, Sam. The good thing about catching up with your mates and seeing them do something is I think what it gives you the sense of, and hopefully this translates across the podcast, is that they're an example of doing the thing that they want to do, and if you want to do it, you can do it.
Totally.
and so that's what's been really cool. And with Tim Doyle, I'd met him a couple of times, and then sort of we caught up for some coffees, and the sort of stuff he was telling me, I was like, well, this is the sort of example that we need to get across, that if you just sort of methodically go along at it, then
we're still going. Yes.
then you'll achieve some stuff, and unless you are actually out there doing something, you're not going to achieve anything.
I think that's the thing, like, and it's like I'm nowhere. Yes. Oh, there's a spider. Please get rid of it. I hate spiders. I think that's the thing, and like obviously the people that you've interviewed, fiercely talented people, but if it's not you, it's someone else. So why not make it you? Right. There's always this mentality of like, and especially with things like media or whatever, people advise you not to get into it because it's a hard industry to get into. Well, yes, it is, but that doesn't make it impossible, No. If your kid wants to be into media, then let them be into media, because if they want it enough, they're going to be there. It's not a luck thing, You make your own luck in that sort of situation. If you want to be there bad enough, you will be.
Absolutely. And I think there's, and even if it doesn't come off, you will have learned a whole bunch and met a whole bunch of people and gained skills and gained ideas of what it is that you want to do. And a number of people have touched on Gary Vaynerchuk is very much about getting started, but one of the things he talks about is, hey, if you did a whole bunch of stuff for 10 years and at the end of that you were 28, you're not too far off, really.
No. And you know what? It's the journey of self-discovery, eh? It's like, it's learning. Sometimes you think you want something and then you start doing it and you realise that it's actually not what you want. And that's all part of it as well. It doesn't mean you failed at it. And this is something that I understand as I get older. I've seen people who did communications and really wanted to be journalists and now aren't journalists because they actually started doing it and they're like, what, this isn't me. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you failed as in that industry. It just means that it wasn't actually for you. There's something else out there for you. And I think as you get older as well, you also realise that there's a million things that you could do, and everything out there actually sounds quite exciting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Touching on what Green left us with, and you're churning your way through Dominic Harvey's book there.
Yes.
A goal for 2018. What's a goal for you, Sam?
I think I want to run a marathon, actually.
Yes. So you've done the half. Tell us what that was like and what the training was like, or lack of.
I was real relaxed on it. I did an hour 50. I think that was about a 5:15 pace. And it was probably better than I should have done. I want to actually, and
it was probably a decision about this time last year, wasn't it? Or was it later than that?
So.
Was it more anniversary weekend?
Well, I got back into running because my mate noticed that I was getting quite porky. And he had ridden.
It's just
I know exactly right. Yeah, he had ridden in Europe competitively for a pro-continental team, cycling.
Yeah.
And so I kind of took his word as gospel. And so that's when I got into running. And up until this point, I've sort of just run because I could. But reading that book, and I mean, this is in no way a plug for that book or anything, but it's bloody good. Like, it talks about this aspect of, like, you can be a runner, but then at some point there is like a conversion point where you realise that actually you want to do more than that.
Yeah.
And he talks about, even when he was running 3-hour, 10-minute marathons, which is something that I could only dream of, you can get a K into your training run and feel like shit, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Like even the fittest people on the planet feel like shit a K into a run. And that's something I discovered this morning when I went for a run, and I kind of got a K into it, and I was planning on doing like 12, and I was like, I'm wrecked. And that's actually all right.
Yeah.
So this year I want to do a full. I want to go out there and actually push myself through it, and whether or not I, don't just stick to Auckland, I might do like Queenstown or something,
Yeah.
But actually commit myself to that and do it. Because I think it'll be interesting just to see how the body copes with it. That's a goal.
Nice.
It's
I follow a gentleman from the States who's good friends with Joe Rogan, actually, and him, Cameron Haynes, and Joe Rogan have a good hunting video that just came out recently, and he's definitely inspiring the trail run, and I do enjoy a run with purpose, if you will.
Yeah.
Sort of in the bush and things, and
trail running seems fun.
Yeah, and my it won't be this year, but one day it's the coast to coast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
big goal.
Ticking off something in the running fraternity might be quite fun to do. Last month we did the 12K, and it was hard, but it's a good sense of achievement, and
you feel good after, eh?
Yeah, that euphoria, and there's lots out there to do. Haven't nailed it down to something in particular with big changes in life happening in March, but
yeah, you're going to have a tiny Ryan running around potentially, or a tiny Alex running around, so that's going to be quite exciting for you.
Yeah, no, it's going to be good.
Probably not running around, actually. It was perhaps a little advanced.
I'll be carrying it. Yeah.
Well, you know what will be really fun? Is you could stick them in a
buggy.
Mountain buggy, and go for a run. It's kind of like running a dog, except it's a person. And it's not running; it's sitting and sleeping. Hopefully.
Yeah.
While you run.
Eh?
While you run.
While you run. Yeah. As I said, I've been out there trying to learn to surf. What's something you've been a beginner at of late, Sam, or is that every day at work?
Every day at work. I feel like I'm a beginner constantly at the moment. I mean, I may have been a journalist for like 3 years, but I'm still a beginner. I'm probably not a junior anymore, but I'm very early intermediate. So every day is something that you can learn. Also with running, I'm constantly learning. I've got a real shit pair of shoes at the moment. I've learnt that I need to upgrade those. Because my Achilles is...
Oh yeah, the today you said the calf and Achilles are gone. Yeah.
but yeah, you got to start somewhere, I suppose.
I'm definitely that with hunting in the bush. Beginner. Had a period there on Saturday where I was lost, or geographically challenged, as you might term it, for an hour and a half, and
not comfortable within your surroundings.
Oh no, I definitely found my way back to where I was before. Quite a few times. As I said, an hour and a half. I've managed to figure out how a GPS actually works. You need the big key was when you sit in one place and it says that you've gone all over the show. That's one big thing that if you're trying to check in with it, it's probably telling you around about where you are.
Yeah.
But actually, if you're walking with it, following the heading, it takes your points as you go along and actually figures out a good path, and in that way you don't get lost and go around in a circle.
Right. Circle. No circle leads to Rome.
No.
I'd actually like to come hunting with you one.
Absolutely, we'll go get lost in the bush.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
And get smelly.
Just like this has been fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
What is are you Michelle across? When you have to write stuff up, where does it have to go to?
Oh, telly and radio. So we is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're TV3, 6 to 9 o'clock every morning, and we're also on Radio Live at the same time. So everything that we do has to be written and done in a way that is digestible for people without, the visual aid there.
Yeah.
So even when we're out on location and doing a live cross, as we were out at Sky City Winter Wonderland, or whatever it was called, Winter Wonderland, you may have a giant Christmas tree behind you, but you've got to kind of reference that you've got a giant Christmas tree behind you. So, yeah, everything has to be done for both audiences. It's kind of very different, especially to our opposition breakfast, who is just television.
Yeah.
we're also competing with the likes of Mike Hosking, who is just radio.
Yeah.
So it makes our show a little bit special in that regard, but it also makes it a real beast to write for.
Yeah.
Because you've got to understand that there's quite a few more moving parts in there.
And with media works being across the internet as well, do you have to write the content for the story that gets uploaded to the internet, or no?
No, we've got a digital team for that. So
that's what you used to do, is that right?
That's what I used to do.
Yeah,
we used to regurgitate a lot of stuff that was, on telly, and put it up online. Now our social media guy, Aziz, as well, does heaps of that. So he produces himself, which is quite unusual in television. Usually a presenter will have a producer. He just produces himself. He writes his own segments and he does everything himself and puts up his own stuff online.
So this is the AM show, like Facebook page and...
Yeah, Facebook page, and then of course we've got our own bit on newshub.co.nz as well. So he does all of that himself, and then we've got newshub.co.nz, so the team are really talented individuals who write and facilitate, other online content from shows.
So is the whole show going on there, or I don't
think the whole AM show goes online. They pick out the best bits, or parts that are most likely to gain traction. So if we have a big interview on there or whatever, they'll take that. Usually Aziz actually will take that and put it online.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Just snapshots.
And you personally, you said you were on Twitter. How does that, create lead or anything?
I'm awful at Twitter, but Twitter is great for instant news. It was probably a lot better when I was in digital news, actually, because if there was a terrorist attack in Paris, for example, which there was on my first day, Charlie Hebdo happened on my first day in digital news, then you can go to Twitter and stuff just gets updated every second. So that's why journalists tend to favour Twitter, because it's happening then and now. And that's where, perhaps it's quite a niche audience for our show, but also, we can get our message across, fairly instantly across Twitter, and then Facebook, of course, as well. But it's a little bit delayed.
Yeah. If you're personally dealing with the news all day, what do you do in your personal social media to balance your life?
My personal social media. I'm not a big social media person. I forget social media a lot of the time. I don't have a profile that requires me to have social media.
Yeah.
Or a big social media. I just I've got my own personal Facebook page. My Twitter is set up for work, but I don't have to use it that much. Anything that's important will go up on the AM show page or whatever. I retweet most of what we do, and only our product, which is kind of, just what happens. But in terms of balance, I'm doing bugger all online anyway, so it's not something that I have to consciously think about, I don't think.
And do you think it's because your work is about what's happening?
What do you mean? Because my work is about what's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I ever do tweet, it'll be because I'm watching the America's Cup and, it's happening live and there, I actually genuinely am passionate about news and about stuff that is happening then and now, and I, will watch politics because I like it, or so if I tweet, it's because something is happening right then and there, and because I happen to be online. Nice. There's actually not terribly much thought about it. Sometimes I'll be looking through my apps and I'll go, oh yeah, Twitter. I should tweet, eh?
Yeah, I think most of my Twitter is posting blogs, podcasts and anything that comes out of my Instagram, which I think this is put this out on my Facebook. It's basically my Instagram.
I think, yeah.
I retweet a lot of rural news on Twitter, actually. Keen on that.
Well, listen to Rural Exchange on Radio Live, actually. 100.6 in Auckland. I'm not sure where it is, actually. But Radio Live, Rural Exchange on a Saturday morning is all rural news, and got a couple of real good singers on there. Lowy and
Richard Lowe. From the North Canterbury.
Yeah, Sarah Perrin and Hamish Mackay.
Parents? Oh, I wonder if she's related to Itchy Perrin.
Yeah.
Hamish Mackay's in rural
Hamish
news?
Mackay, who's actually moved into real estate now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's from Palmy North, so I suppose it gives him license to comment.
Yeah, exactly right.
So where can people find Sam Farrell? And where will they get the best bang for their buck? On Twitter or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Twitter or Instagram. If you find me on social media, good luck. I'll be there. I accept friend requests because I'm lonely. Hey, Liv. I'm lonely. So hit me up and I'll
Have a banter.
and I'll have a chat. Yeah, the beauty of New Zealand is that
You might probably know.
no one's out of touch.
Yeah. You probably, yeah. Oh, you know. So, oh, sweet.
I drunk messaged Dom Harvey the other night.
Good.
Yeah, I said I'm 3 chapters into your book, bro. Really enjoying it. Gonna run a marathon this year. I wasn't lying, but he came back to me, followed me on Instagram.
Oh, follow back.
Yeah.
It's because you're in the media.
Oh, it's probably just because they showed interest.
Nice.
I am reading his book. Really love it. Yeah. I mean, just goes to show that
New Zealand's small.
New Zealand's so small, bro.
And so, what would you leave the listeners with? The watchers, the listeners. This. If you're on YouTube, you've seen a lot today.
Yeah.
lots going on in the background.
We're at the vet, so man.
Yeah.
Keep listening to this podcast will be one of
Oh,
the
thanks.
things. What else have I learned? You tend to limber up with a bit of liquid confidence.
Yeah.
Also, yeah. This is fun. I've enjoyed this. It's something I've learned.
Nice.
Shit. Also, don't go for a run at 10 o'clock in the morning because that just ends badly.
Yeah. And are you making a New Year's resolution, or have you ever done that?
I did last year actually. I said last year that I was going to do a live cross. I was going to do some telework and
you were with online last year, right?
I was with Radio Live.
Yeah.
And so I actually managed the first year that I've managed to stick to those, and so this year I'm going into it with a bit of confidence. We're thinking about it. I maybe definitely run a marathon. What else happens? I'm not entirely sure yet. I'll probably come up with it on the 31st. But yeah, I think the big one will be run a marathon.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, well, we're missing out on nibbles here, so we'll probably go enjoy those.
Yeah, we will.
And we'll post this up in the new year.
Yeah.
And hope everybody has a great one.
Peace out. Catch you on the AM.
AM show.